is karate such a great fit for people who have autism? It's not always a good fit. Just like anybody, the best fit for somebody in karate is for somebody who enjoys the process, who enjoys coming to class. But there are some things about karate really specifically that make it a good match for kids or adults with autism. There are also a few things to watch out for. So let's go over both of those things. First of all, the reason that karate can be a good match for somebody with autism is that once they understand the structure of the class, it's terribly predictable. We warm up, we work on basics, we do kata, we do sparring, we have a game, we cool down, we're done. And so that repetition, the predictability of the class structure is very good. The other thing that's good is that the rules are pretty black and white. Do this, this is the result. Do that, that is the result. And so that kind of steadiness of expectation makes not just people with autism, makes everybody feel safer. Now, repetition. Let's talk about repetition. The other thing about karate that can make it a really great fit for somebody with autism is that they get rewarded for high levels of repetition. We may not understand it, and it may seem, I don't know, may just seem odd to us, but a lot of times that level of repetition is super soothing for somebody who, well, they don't have to have autism. Sometimes repetition is just soothing for people, okay? And in karate, you get rewarded for that. The better your kata is, and the more repetitions you do, the better it's going to get, the more you're going to be rewarded. However, people with autism tend to have a thing called, it's not a thing, people with autism tend to lock on to content faster than other people. It's called primacy of learning. And so within this idea of primacy of learning, if somebody with autism learns a kata, they may get very attached to the way that they do it the first time. It may be very difficult to unlock mistakes later on. So I found a handy trick. A handy trick for me is to teach all of my students that every time they learn something, instead of learning how to make it the same all the time, when they come to class, they should look for one thing that they can change. So when we set the expectation that changing something is good, then we set ourselves up for a little bit more success over time, especially with our katas. Now, the other thing that can make karate difficult for somebody with autism is the sparring. And here's why. It's been my experience that certain people are hypersensitive to being touched and hyposensitive to what they do to other people. So the way that that translates within a karate class is that if somebody hits me super hard, I don't have autism, they hit me super hard, I think, oh, they hit me really hard. And then I hit them back with what I perceive as equal power or force, and then they get their feelings hurt very easily, and they think that I'm trying to hurt them or beat them up. So we learned this the hard way. So this sensitivity to touch and this lack of awareness of lack of facial recognition, people with autism oftentimes, they're very hard to read because they can have a straight face all the time. And they don't do a good job reading body language. So if they're hitting somebody hard, they just don't know it. So one thing that I have found that's been super helpful with that is to define power like a volume button. So my students with autism they don't see the body and they don't see face. I'll get back to the volume thing in a second. But they do recognize inanimate objects. So if you say, imagine there's a tennis ball right here, well, they can hit the tennis ball. But if you say hit the nose, they may not even really know what a nose looks like, and so that is confusing to them. So inanimate references work better than people references. Volume control works a lot better than hit harder, hit softer, because we can define it. We can say, you know, what I saw was you hitting at the level of a 10. Can we turn that down to a 6? And now all of a sudden they have a very, very logical, reasonable way to define what it is that they're doing. And then that's language that we can build upon over time. So I don't know if that's why karate works for people, but those are all the things that I've learned about working with my students with autism, and just some of those little things have helped us at BKD to be very successful. And so whether you just want to reach out and ask some questions, whether you're an instructor or a parent, I'm happy to share any of that information. And for sure, we will be addressing it as we move forward, especially in our leadership workshops, and then throughout our classes as well. We will try to be sensitive to those different issues.